Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Charles DiGisco of the Lover and the Fighter. Charles, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Hey, great to be here, Gresh. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm super excited to have you on, and what I wanted to do was just read a little bit more about Charles so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And The Lover and the Fighter is a podcast discussing all things fighting and relationships. Charles is an MMA fighter, color commentator, and gym owner who has spent countless hours on the mats and in the business, and has been known among his friends as the resident therapist when it comes to dating and relationships. He will break down any and all questions he receives on the topic. Charles, are you ready to speak to the I'm CEO community?
I sure am, man. Can't wait.
Awesome. Let's do it. So I want to kick everything off and hear more about what I call your CEO story, and we'll let you start your business.
So my business itself is District Martial Arts, right? So that's the physical gym that I've now owned for coming up on 2 years, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And oddly enough, everything is kind of connected, right? So I started training in the sport of mixed martial arts. I actually started with boxing, and then I went to jiu-jitsu and kind of grew everything from there. About 10 years ago, I was 17. I was in high school. And over the years, it became a constant in my life, and I was never really good with commitment. So there was always a lot of things always changing around me and stuff like that. I was moving to new places. I was, hanging out with new women, right? That's where the dating comes from. Mm-hmm. And then sure enough, that just stayed relevant. It stayed a major part of my life. And I got connected with a couple buddies who were, one was fighting in the UFC at the time. A couple others were professional grapplers, and we all started training together and coaching. And then when the gym we were at was closing and they were moving to a different location, we kind of just seized the day and started a business, and we hit the ground running. In 6 months we were making money, and a year and a half later we're now looking to move to a bigger spot.
Nice. That's completely awesome. And then the podcast kind of just came about from that standpoint too.
Yeah. So, the podcast was a natural evolution of everything, because for my friends, I really did become the resident therapist. I gave good advice. I read a lot. I always had older friends. So I always had these guys. I mean, even my father were very close, always giving their wisdom. So I had that at a very young age. So for guys my age, they would talk to me and I'd be able to relate to them as a peer, but I'd be able to take the advice I got from somebody who knew much more than I did, especially when it comes to dating and knowing what to look for, knowing what's a red flag and what's not. And I was able to kind of translate that for them and put it into terms they can understand. And then, like anything, the more you do it, just like in fighting, the more you do it, the better you get, and I don't want to say I developed the talent for it, but I really enjoyed helping people and helping them sort out tough situations they find themselves in. And, like dating, it's so tough. You know what I mean? Like, I've taken so many more L's than I could ever hope to have wins. But it's kind of learning from those losses and not taking it personally, and, kind of getting used to rejection. And rejection is so tough, but just like getting punched in the face, over time, it doesn't really affect you as much as you think it would. That doesn't mean you want it to happen every day, but when it does happen, it doesn't quite seem to bother you as much.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because there's definitely a lot of parallels between, that obviously you talked about, MMA and boxing and then kind of any type of sports or any athletics. And then, of course, business itself, because you have to, go through those rejections in order to learn from them. But it's not so much you can control all those things, but you can control like how you look at it or how you approach it and things that happen from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You wouldn't expect dating, owning a business, and fighting to really be related, right? But at its core, the soft skills you learn from all those things really are. I got really good at dealing with conflict and having problem solving just from owning a business, because so many, if it can happen and if it can go wrong, it 100% will, right. And learning how to efficiently solve that problem, as quickly as possible, and as resolute as possible too, making sure you find the best solution, not just the fastest. I think that goes a long way, both in fighting and dating too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we all have taken our L's, so it's important to kind of learn as much as you can from that, because I certainly have taken enough myself and in business and in life. So I know you touched on it a little bit. Did you have any more you can expound upon with your business and your podcast and what you're doing there, like people can kind of learn from it, and then what you feel kind of is your secret sauce?
Absolutely. So, the business, well, actually, you probably know better than anybody. The business itself, the tangible part, the lessons, I could probably write a book at this point, and there's people who've done it before me who could write an even longer one. But one thing that I really picked up on is kind of knowing what to make a priority, knowing what you have to solve immediately versus knowing what you're like, look, I need to get this done, but it can happen after X, Y, and Z. The customer service aspect, especially because we own a gym and it's a fight gym, right? So we have it's a very high testosterone environment. We have active competitors. I'm still in the mix competing. One of the other coaches is still actively competing, but we have to train with these people who are kind of paying us, but we also have to teach them. So very quickly, you could see that it can easily become a tough environment that people would want to go to, because I've been to fight gyms in the past where you walk in and you're sweating already. You'll get tired before you even start sparring because it's not sparring, you're fighting. You just have headgear on, you know what I mean? You got a mouthpiece, you got headgear, but you and these guys are about to go, and it's going to get rough and violent, But what we've done at District Martial Arts is we've created a real, and I want to preface this saying, I always thought it was ridiculous when you hear about like community and environment as a kid. I was like, yeah, whatever, it's just the people you hang out with, right? But now when we've hit we got over 100 members, and we have a real genuine environment where people want to just hang out with one another. People are just talking and hanging around, and I guess I didn't really see that coming when I first started the gym, right? When I first started the business, I was thinking, revenue, training, and satisfaction in life. But I didn't realize this fourth factor would come in, which would be how much I enjoy hanging out with people, right? Like, I'm not running a store where I'm selling a product. I'm selling a service, right? I'm selling my knowledge and everything I know. But with that comes this human nature of understanding how to teach people certain ways, knowing what's going to resonate with one person that might not resonate with another, knowing when sometimes people are just having bad days and you got to just kind of listen, let them talk it out, and figure out what kind of training you want to do from that, right? When I have a bad day, I want to get after it. I want to bite down. I want to get rough, right? Sometimes when people have a bad day, they just need to kind of calm down and relax and catch their breath, And now when we have like gym events and parties or, anything, we got like everybody there. Everybody's palling around, they're hanging out, it's kind of become, we're just a big group of friends, And the podcast actually kind of came as an extension. I started the podcast just after opening the gym because, my group of friends that would have these conversations for, and I would, give them fight advice because I do commentary and I worked in the industry from a business perspective. So I know the sport and obviously the dating advice that we talked about. Mm-hmm. Well, instead of telling, 8, 10, 15 people, I was telling like 40 to 60 people. Right. And I'm like, well, there's got to be a better way to do this, and Joe Rogan's like my hero besides my father. So I was like, well, let me just start a podcast. And my girlfriend Grace is a video and production whiz. So she does like all the cool graphics and she does all the technical editing and stuff. And she'll come on the podcast too and offer a very, a strong female perspective. So that's just like one more way that it all kind of came together. You know what I mean? Like having her there to kind of put the polish, so to speak, on the rough edges that I kind of present was really helpful. I couldn't do without it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I absolutely love that. And I love how things kind of just organically grow because a lot of times you create something and you have like a vision for what it is that you want to build. And, you think it's going to be X, Y, and Z, but a lot of times it just kind of organically happens where, to me, I'm big into like passion and following, your gift and listening to that, that quiet voice sometimes. And a lot of times when you do that, you start to build something that's truly phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, the organic growth is, it's like an X factor, right? Like you can't really predict it. That's not something I put on my revenue forecasting or I put on my business plan, but it's like one of the best benefits from it because, I still work a day job. I'm a government consultant for the Defense Department. Like and it's a good day job, no doubt. But as soon as I leave there, for most people, they'd be like, wow, so you work, anywhere from, 10 to 15 hours a day straight through between work and the gym. And I'm like, well, you know what? The gym, while it is work, it doesn't feel like the same type of work. It feels like it's an environment that I get to kind of be a part of. And I get a lot of relaxation from it, believe it or not, too. Maybe not in the sparring and the violence, but right. Everything that comes with it has definitely helped me take the edge off of the day job, which is a little bit more of a grind,
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I absolutely love that. And I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. And this might be an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but it's something that makes you more effective and efficient.
So, we were just talking about this actually on the last episode of Lover and the Fighter. And I think in general, basic project management skills, right? So just being able to keep yourself organized and having a process to do things. I originally started doing that in my day job, right? Because that was my role. But then it quickly expanded into everything I did. The gym, training camps, commentary. Like the way I go about, sending my follow-up emails when I'm trying to get a commentary gig, anything I'm doing just to further my life in terms of my careers, that's all project management and organization. Everybody knows that you need to pretty much, it's all about the grit. You don't stop trying, you keep pushing forward, and the relentlessness, right? I'm not telling anybody anything new there, but the boring part, the project management, the keeping things organized, that also has such an important aspect to reaching your goals and getting to that next level. And that was something I didn't really realize until I was like a year in, and I was feeling a little overwhelmed, and I just started getting a little bit more organized. And it happened again, kind of organically, that I was like, let me just make this a process. I make this boring, streamlined process, but I put it into things that aren't boring at all. And that kind of takes away the monotony of it. And it also keeps me honest, because, it's easy to follow your passion and talk about your dreams, but you have to do the boring work too. You have to do the process work to make the dreams and passions possible. And if I can expand a little bit, are we okay on time?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
So, one thing that I tried to explain, and I spoke at American University at the beginning of the month, and it was a bunch of college students, and which is funny because I feel like I'm just out of college. I'm only 27. Mm-hmm. But when I explained to them, I was like, they asked, like, you do a lot of different things, and how do you do them? And it would be so easy for me to be like, oh, I don't sleep, but no, I sleep plenty. Sleep is such a priority to me. It's like my favorite thing. I like, what do you not have in life? Well, I mean, I'd like to play Xbox sometimes, and I have a really good friend group. So it's a little bit complicated, but the biggest thing I would say is you have three tiers, right? The first is your baseline and your interests, right? So for me, that's like my day job. I have interest in it, business development, and I think that's pretty interesting, but by and large, it's just interest. And then I have my passions, right? My passion is fighting. My passion is owning the gym, like doing something that I really enjoy. Like that's that second tier stuff. And the more income and the more time I could spend in my passions instead of the things I'm interested in, the better, right? But then there's that third tier. And that third tier is your dreams, right? And those are oftentimes the hardest, and oftentimes nobody puts in the real work to get there. But for me, my dream is to be a commentator for, let's say, the UFC, right? I've been on Fight Pass, UFC Fight Pass. I've been on Flow Combat, but I want to get on network television. That's my goal, to do commentary. That's my dream. So how far up that totem pole can I get? How far away can I go from the interests, which aren't bad, but it's a baseline, to the passions, to the dreams, and not losing sight of the one just because you're doing so well in the other. Especially, it's easy. Your day job, you're going to put the most amount of time in. So naturally, you're going to see the rewards, and that's going to be the majority of your income. It's the majority of your time, and you move up the fastest. But it's what do you do with your spare time to make your passions and your dreams not only possible, but a very fruitful and effectively required way of life for you, right? Like, how do I transition from my interests to my passions and my dreams? And that, to me, has been the biggest thing, where I don't lose sight of it. If work is going well and I get a promotion, or I land a big deal, that's great. How am I using that time with that revenue that I just generated to put into my passions and my dreams? Who am I reaching out to for commentary? Am I doing a new highlight tape? Am I cutting clips from, a work that I just did not too long ago? Am I going to, repaint a wall at the gym? Am I going to come up with a new computer system when people sign it? What am I going to do to make the higher tier things that might be more of a reach, more efficient, and give me a better return? Both, financially, I don't even like talking about it, because I've used the word revenue too much in this interview already. Mm-hmm. But just from a return on my life satisfaction, I get more satisfaction from these things than I ever will, waking up at 7:30 on a Monday to go to work and sit in traffic and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And a lot of times, go ahead.
Oh, no, I should clarify. I like my day job. I don't want anybody thinking I don't like my day job, but even more so for the people who don't.
Yeah, well, I think that I love the way that you broke down, those three different aspects, because a lot of times, there's things that you're super passionate about. And it doesn't mean that because I'm passionate about something, I don't like, my day job, or I don't like these other things. A lot of times it's just understanding all those things, understanding how they fit in, and how you can, take steps in order to make that happen. And however you want it to happen. So it could be, continuing on as you have it now. It could be, you doing that full time. It could be a multitude of things. But the point is that you have it broken down to where you can make that decision. And I absolutely love that, because you get to be kind of like the author or the decision maker on how you want your life to go, because you have a full understanding of all the different pieces. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. And this is a word of wisdom or piece of advice. Or if you can hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self?
Oh man, if I could hop into a time machine, I think I'd probably go back to like just right at the end of middle school, right when you get out of puberty. But, you know, I think when you look back and you look at it from an aggregate, right, you look at it on a macro level and the big picture, it's so easy to talk yourself out of things in the big picture. Like if I think about like commentary, for example, which is my dream, right? And that in that third tier, I've taken the most losses in anything. It's amazing when I even get a reject. I'm happy when somebody says no because I'm so used to getting no response, I mean, when it's a yes, I'm ready to throw a fiesta. But the thing is that if I looked at it from how much effort am I going to put into something versus what am I going to get in return? And again, not just financially, but just in success, right? How many yeses am I going to get compared to nos? Man, I would never have done it. I would never have done it. But when I look at it on a day-to-day and I say, okay, this is going to be an hour of my day. It's not going to be 365 hours of the year, right? It's not going to be, however many work weeks that adds up to. I don't want to do quick math. But when you look at it on the day-to-day, it's like I could put an hour towards my dream. I could put 5 hours towards my dream today. And maybe I'm going to get a return, and maybe those 5 hours are going to turn into 500 hours. Maybe that's going to turn into a new career. And maybe it won't turn into anything. But I can't look at it in this long form picture because if I do, you're looking at the mountain, not the step, right? And I actually got that, and not the exact words, but effectively an aggregate of it from, I used to read a lot of memoirs. And it was one of the memoirs that I read, I'm not sure which one. I believe it was the creator of Delta Force, which is the U.S. Army's like top tier unit. And he was saying how hard it was. They had a 40-mile ruck, which is like a 40-mile effective like hike, but you have 60 pounds of gear in your rucksack, and it's a disaster. And you just get a compass and a map, and they don't tell you where you're going. You just have points you have to reach where they give you the next compass point. So you're going wherever they say you're going. And he said he got to a certain point where he just couldn't think of how much more he had to go, and he was ready to quit. But instead, he just said, "Just take one more step. Just take one more step. Just take one more step." And that really resonated with me. And I read that as a child, right? I might have been 12 years old. I probably shouldn't have been reading it, But when I read that, for whatever reason, it stuck with me throughout my life. And no more so than here where I'm chasing not only my passions, opening a gym, the trials and tribulations that went through that, fighting, the fight camp, sparring, not, cutting weight, everything that goes with that, even to, dating, right? Like, oh man, sometimes you take 5 L's in a row and you're like, oh, what am I doing? I should just go home, right? But really for that goal, that end goal of being a commentator and not stopping or having my podcast grow to the point where it becomes self-sustaining, right? Like all these things that I just keep pushing for, it's just one step at a time. And my goal is just to take that one step. So if I'm imparting any wisdom on anybody, aside from that 3-tiered list you should make, it's just take that one step. When it feels overwhelming, just take one step and then see how you feel about the next one.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that perspective of looking at it as a step rather than a mountain, because you can, lose sight of the process and lose sight of just the small things that you can do every day to get to that mountain, get over that mountain. So I appreciate that, CEO Nugget. And now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is a definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Charles, what does being a CEO mean to you?
So to me, it's pretty interesting. I think to me, it means being in charge of my own life, right? Like I'm not a CEO at my day job. The business that I own, I have a couple partners. And commentary, well, technically I'm just a contractor, right? So really what it is, and even the podcast, I have a partner in my girlfriend, Grace. So I might not have 100% say in all of these different things I do. I might not be able to dictate who does what or anything like that. Obviously I have my input, but I'm a CEO in my life. At Charles DiGisco, LLC, I am the CEO, right? So I'm choosing to put my effort and energy into each of these individual things. And in turn, it's up to me to really understand what that return is. Sometimes it's just being able to rest my head on the pillow and be like, wow, I'm really doing some cool things. I'm doing what I need to do, That hit me one time with commentary where I interviewed Donald Cowboy Cerrone on air. And if you're an MMA fan, he's a pretty popular guy. So I interviewed him on air and I couldn't believe what was happening. And it didn't really hit me until I laid down that night. I was like, wow, I'm doing this. Like I did that, right? Like it was like that was a ground up operation I did to get there. It was constantly harassing this poor guy. Shout out to Brian Hamper, my boss there. I mean, I just was relentless, texting him, calling him, emailing, sending him highlight tapes, whatever I had to do. But from that hour I took, right, that extra step I took, it resulted in one of the biggest moments of my career for commentary. And that was where I really felt like, okay, like I'm in control of my own life. Like I'm my chief executive officer. And you might not have total say in everything you do, or every individual thing you do. But when it comes to putting your head on a pillow, like you're in control of your life, and you get to decide what you put your energy into, what you chase, and how you decide to chase it.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great reminder and incredible perspective, a lot of why, I wanted to create the podcast. So I appreciate you for sharing that with us. And Charles, I appreciate your time. What I want to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and our listeners know, and then how best they can get a hold of you.
Guys, this is Gresh. First off, thank you so much. This has been such an honor. I just want to, hopefully I sound encouraging and not too like inspirational or anything like that. Just don't stop chasing what you really want. And if you have to keep that baseline with that day job, don't let that talk you out of pursuing your other interests. In order to get in touch with me, guys, if you want to, hey, listen, subscribe, download to The Lover and the Fighter. It'll complement this podcast quite well. We talk about a whole host of things, from fighting to dating to owning a gym and everything that comes with that in the business world. And also you can get in touch with me on Instagram. It's CGDIGISCO. That's CG DiGisco on Instagram. And I don't really use any of the social media, but I'll actually give out my email as well in case anybody has any personal questions they want to ask me, if they need just like some kind of one-on-one advice for anything I touched on. And that's the same thing, CGDIGISCO79@gmail.com.
Awesome. We'll have those links and the information in the show notes as well. So Charles, appreciate you, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.